today's show. Western Conference just got turned upside down by one man making one decision, telling no one. Nico Harrison trades Luka Doncic to the Dallas Mavericks. What does the West look like now? I guess we'll figure it out. Today's Locked On NBA Squad Show West.
You are talking ball with the NBA West Squad Show, sponsored by Game Time. From the Warriors to the Lakers, the Mavericks to the Nuggets, and everyone else in the West. The local experts of the Locked On Podcast Network bring you all the scoops, breakdowns, and the most comprehensive look at the Western Conference. Trash talk and big takes included. No holding back, we're giving the green light. It's time to talk NBA West.
And welcome. You're locked into the NBA Squad Show West, and I will be sending a note to HR for that that intro with the Luka image with the Mavericks jersey. That's assault right there. This is the Squad Show where we take over the feed of your favorite Locked On show. It's an open invite for any host to join and talk about anything they want, no matter what it is in the NBA's Western Conference. Today's episode is sponsored by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use that code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Joining me, hosts from the NBA on the Western Conference, we got Matt Moore from the Locked On Nuggets, Rylan Stiles, Locked On Thunder, Jackson Gatlin, Locked On Rockets, Brendan Clean, Locked On Suns, Matt George, Locked On Kings, and Ryan Blackburn, Locked On Nuggets. Gentlemen, anybody have any thoughts about what's happened? Matt Moore, I'll start with you. Thoughts on Luka Doncic, the Dallas Mavericks? Is this just gonna be a let's pile on the Mavs show? Because I've been doing that for a week and I'm ready to do some more.
Yeah, I'm just going to twist the dagger. That's all I want to do here. So I just want to ask questions. I don't want to talk. I just want to ask questions. I'd like to go around the horn here and start with Ryan and work backwards. Of if the Mavericks called and offered you Luka Doncic, what would you think an appropriate offer from your team
this is so painful.
would be? Like, what's good value? What's like good value? I mean, you can't give up Anthony Davis in a first. Who could? Don't tell anybody. But like, if they called and they were like, hey, I'll give you Luka Doncic and a second rounder, mind you, and a second rounder, what would you give the offer in return? Ryan, what do you think is a good value from the Nuggets?
You know what? Maybe we'll just throw in Jamal Murray for you. Maybe we'll throw in Michael Porter Jr. We'll see. We'll see if those things are perfectly reasonable. Can we get a Jamal Murray made a shot? Just put into a t-shirt and maybe put that on Anthony Davis's face instead. And I mean, no, there's no fair trade from the Nuggets perspective. You're not getting Jokic, that's for sure.
Jamal, MPJ, Peyton Watson in a first. That's actually that's a worse deal than probably the Mavericks got.
Yeah, absolutely.
Matt George, I really want to, before the Fox trade, what would you have given?
Marvin Bagley. Next question.
The baffling Kings took Bagley.
But would you give up, let's say Sabonis. Would you give up Sabonis, Keegan in a first?
For Luka Doncic? Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Would you give up Fox, or would you give up Fox, Keegan, and 2 firsts?
Probably.
Andy, they're just torturing me.
Brendan Clean from Locked On Suns. You can't do
anything. And some pennies under the couch cushion. But what it really is 6 years of DeAndre Ayton that I had to watch. That's the real answer for what could have really,
But
in the real world, that's
on Saturday. Would you trade KD for him?
I mean, value wise, you have to.
Would you trade Devin Booker for him?
Come on, Brendan.
Spun around by NBA fans, and it's like value wise, yes, but it's like does that type of trade happen? I don't know. I guess that's what AD sort of was, but they still have LeBron. It's like you're just switching teams. At like your whole team is just a different thing at that point. I don't know. Can't really fathom it, but yeah, I guess so. I guess you'd have to. He's better.
Jackson from Locked On Rockets.
Both.
No, hang on. One of Amin Thompson or Alperen Şengün. Then take your pick from whoever else is left. Like, you got to keep one of those 2 young guys. That's my only caveat. One of them stays. Pick whoever else you want from the young guys. Pile in 1 million draft picks to beat everybody else's offer. That's what you give for Luka.
Okay, and this one's a really good one. Rylan Stiles.
Oh my God.
From Locked On Thunder.
Well, I'd start the bidding with Ousmane Dieng, a lottery pick, someone who has a lot of potential. But Nico would convince me that defense wins championships, so I'd probably just say nothing. I would not give up anything for Luka. But in reality, J-Dub, and then you can just have whatever picks you want. Don't really care.
If they push for Chet Holmgren, would you do it?
No.
Really?
No, I would just hold on to him. I think that he has more upside on both ends of the court than J-Dub does. And the two injuries have been, you're cautiously optimistic that they're just kind of flukes. The one on LeBron on the wet court and then falling on his hip this year. It's been bad. Like obviously he was out a whole season and half of one, but they were really fluky. It wasn't anything to do with his like frame or something like that.
Nick Angsat from Locked On Mavericks. What would you give up for Luka Doncic?
My house, one of my legs, probably an arm as well. Just the left arm, probably though. I need the right one. So many things, and it's just you just go back and you think there's only the show we did today on Locked On Mavs. There's literally only one person that's happy about this or that it makes sense to, and that's Nico Harrison. It's literally the only one. He didn't talk to anybody else. He went to ownership, and I think it's hilarious today that one of the talking points that people are saying is, what about Mavs ownership? Shouldn't Mavs ownership have said no to this? Shouldn't we hold them to blame too? How long did Mavs fans say that Mark Cuban should stay out of all trade stuff and like, let the GM do his job? And finally, the owner let the Mavs GM do his job, and he did the worst thing that he could possibly do because this trade just means it's more than just what's on the court.
I think it is worth at least acknowledging Nico Harrison may have been allowed to do the thing that he thought was best or what he wants. He also may have been doing the thing that was the directive to do from up top in terms of the financial piece of this. Like, this may not have been Nico Harrison purely being the smartest and only guy in the room who thinks. And
he's just taking the slings and arrows from it. He's just the meat shield that the ownership is using because they didn't want to give him the money. The problem with the money thing is like, oh, we didn't want to give Luka the money.
He's not having a job.
The money goes well. He said he was about to be buried in 10 years anyway. He wouldn't have a job at the press conference. That was insane. The thing about the money is the money is going somewhere. It's a cap. The money is going to go somewhere. The Thunder are going to have to pay SGA, but that money was going to go to somebody. You might as well go to top 3 player in the NBA.
It's not about the money. It's about the 2028 Vegas Mavericks. The Adelsons moving the team over to Las Vegas. That's
here we go. We want to go. You want to go full into it. We can go full into it.
I really thought when you said about the money, I thought you were going to quote The Dark Knight and be like,
say.
It's about sending a message.
Oh, I was so close. So close to greatness. Just like the Mavs, so close to greatness.
They did this in the East Squad show. I'm curious if anybody in the West did. Does anybody think it was a good move for the Mavs? Anyone want to zig? Anyone do the ultimate zig and zag?
It can't be considered a good move for the Mavericks. I will just say this caveat. If you were just hell-bent on trading Luka, which they clearly were, and we just went around the horn. Yeah, he was. And we just went around the horn of like what the packages would be. And you were still trying to win this year. I think that the AD package still is the only one that helps you win this year. Even as much as we love J-Dub and OKC, in terms of winning this title in 2025, AD helps you do that more than J-Dub would in a 1-for-1 Luka swap.
Let me ask the Mavericks guy, Nick, if the Mavs win a title sometime in the next 5 years, just one title, they win one, do you look back at this move and say it was the right move?
Well, Kyrie would be 38 in 5 years, so the window is maybe shorter than that. The thing is,
well, and what's the point of being competitive this year? What is that like? That they're not going to win the championship, so even saying it's like this year, who cares about this year?
It's one of those things where Mavs fans have the only thing the Mavs fans can compare it to is the 2011 title, which is like one of the most special titles to a fan base ever. And so you saw Dirk make his whole redemption tour and all that and made that run. And you had Luka, who now is out, or Luka was out of the playoffs a couple years ago, then made back to the finals. And you're like, all right, now we're going to see Luka make that same kind of run. And now now you got your heart completely ripped out because the guy that you've attached yourself to, you've defended, you've loved, you thought if you ever think about the Dallas Mavericks as a Mavs fan, you think about Luka first. And now he's just gone. And it just is, it just ripped the heart out of so many people. I mean, did you guys see the stage at the American Airlines Center where there was a coffin literally brought in? There's a shrine to Luka Doncic. I think one title would make it worth it for Nico Harrison. I still think Nico Harrison's title and what he's going to be known for the rest of his life is the GM that traded Luka Doncic. Even if they win a title, he will be first. His Wikipedia page will say the GM that traded Luka Doncic. Also, the Mavs won the 2020 whatever title.
I mean, I think it's also reflective of where we're at with fandom. Like, this is what's been, I think, amazing to me is like, I do think that people have kind of shifted where people are such fans of a player that it really is more important to win with that guy. Like, this isn't even Dirk level. Like, I honestly think this is beyond Dirk level, which is crazy because Dirk was honestly just like Dirk took his job seriously. He did.
Yeah, Dirk hit a point where he and Nash learned together that you got to take care of your body and all that. And Luka never hit that point at this, or hasn't hit that point at this point. And that's the biggest reason that Nico Harrison said that he wanted to trade Luka, which to me is still a couple days later not good enough. That's not a good enough reason to trade Luka Doncic. But coming up, let's talk about how this changes the Western Conference. Who is affected the most by this besides the Dallas Mavericks? We'll talk about that and more coming up. Today's episode of Locked On NBA Squad Show, oh my God, is brought to you by BetterHelp. Go check out BetterHelp if you have some things in your life that you need to talk about, some anxiety, some things that you need to work through. Maybe you've experienced a loss in your life recently. Maybe your life has changed because of a move or some kind of specific thing that has left your life in some way. They want me to talk about green flags. I don't know. I can't think of any green flags that are happening right now in a specific relationship in my life. Therapy helps you develop healthy boundaries, improve your communication skills, and all kinds of other stuff. It empowers you to help set clear expectations, express your needs in relationships, discover the relationship green flags, and the help that you need with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA, BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA. Oh, gentlemen, it's the Locked On NBA Squad Show West, where we talk about the teams in the Western Conference. Which team, let's say besides the Dallas Mavericks, is affected the most by the Luka Doncic trade? Andy Kamenetsky, Locked On Lakers. Can you think of a team that is affected the most by this besides the Dallas Mavericks?
Got to be the Thunder, right?
I would think.
Could be. I mean, the Thunder in more ways than one. You have the pick swap from Dallas in 2028 because, of course, the Thunder do, where they project to be better than the Mavericks, so then they're going to implement that swap. And then the Mavericks were the biggest threat, as we discussed on a previous Locked On NBA West Squad show, to Oklahoma City. And I think that the matchup is still very difficult. I think that they'd still be at or near the top of the list for this season in terms of matchups with the Thunder because of how AD can go defend Chet on the perimeter. But offensively for the Mavericks, they did take a step back. I mean, you no longer have the magician. You no longer have the musician whipping the ball around at PJ Washington and getting him clean looks. And AD pick and rolls with Kyrie are fun until you have Daniel Gafford camped in the paint and cramming the spacing, and you have two non-shooting bigs next to him for a guy who doesn't want to play the center position. So it's just also strange, but it does impact the Thunder in a great way.
Who's the next star that the Lakers were going to get that now they won't? That to me is like the big question here is like, was it Devin Booker? Was it going to be? And that's it. The big winner is the Minnesota Timberwolves because it makes it less likely that Anthony Edwards goes to LA.
They're not going to get better in the West, though.
Come on, Matt. It just means that Ant's going to go to the Clippers. Come on, man. We know how this
new stadium, great stadium.
Oh, I'm just. The Mavericks just completely changed as a team. They're now like this defensive, huge. They're going to play Anthony Davis at the 4. They'll probably play PJ at the 3. They've got now one guard in Kyrie Irving. Now all the Mavs trade targets are completely different than what they were before. Now all of a sudden you're looking at, okay, can they add another offensive creator? Can they add another initiator? It's like that. We haven't really looked for that.
Well, look, in forever. We were talking about teams most impacted from this, not the Mavericks, right? Well, obviously, let's talk a little bit about the Lakers because I think the Lakers are in a really interesting position as it currently stands, right? Do they punt on the rest of this season, or do they try to win with some version of Luka and LeBron and this like fragmented roster because they don't have a functioning 5-man lineup right now? Jackson Hayes is your starting center. Like that's problematic. So do they make some moves and try to like maintain some semblance of being competitive this season with, let's be honest, Luka and LeBron is not a great fit. They're both all-time great players, and they're going to find a way to make it work. But if you're trying to put Luka and LeBron on the floor together, that defense is going to be abysmal. And then offensively, you're not getting the best version of either of those two guys since they're elite when they have the ball in their hands. Yes, LeBron can play off of Luka a little bit. Yes, Luka can try to play off of LeBron a little bit, but you're only going to get like 80 or 85% of the max like potential of those two guys playing in that sort of a dynamic. I think the other shoe to drop is that LeBron needs to get traded. That's my bold take is trade LeBron. Figure out what you need. Like
anything could happen now. Luka's been traded. Anything could happen.
Look, he's got the no trade clause, but I think you got to figure that out and jumpstart the Luka era of Lakers basketball.
Is this a win now season for the Lakers, or are they resetting? Where do you stand on?
Ask me on Thursday. I mean, the truth is I can't answer the question until after the trade deadline to know truly how much of this is prioritizing this season versus clearly the big picture is the number one goal. I mean, obviously the Lakers between now and say 2035, that is the ultimate priority. But depending on what moves are made over the next 72 hours, the Lakers could be, if nothing else, a team that can go a couple rounds in the playoffs and hope that maybe some things break their way, which is essentially what their ceiling was pre-Luka trade anyway. As for the idea of need to trade LeBron, unless you're going to make things exceptionally uncomfortable over the next 72 hours to make LeBron ask for a no-trade clause, which you never know how someone reacts, but I'm not sure that's exactly the introduction that I want with Luka, trying to convince him to sign an extension. Watch the way we ran out possible GOAT of NBA history. Watch the way we kicked his ass on the way. That's a bad way to get Luka.
Is that a bad thing? Is to like on the way out, just like pile on the guy that you traded without telling him? That's bad?
I wouldn't think that would be the angle. I would think you sit down and have the discussion with LeBron. Do you want to stay in LA and do you want to try to play alongside?
I think they already have. I mean, according to multiple reports, LeBron's good with this. Otherwise, he would have said, "Find me a new home in 72 hours."
Yeah, and if you trade him, he's like the one guy who actually would just bolt. He's not going to let a trade dictate his goodbye to the NBA, right? So I don't even know what a trade would look like. The Warriors are so obvious because they've been linked before, but you're not going to open that up and send LeBron to some random place, even if you didn't have the no trade clause.
Right,
he'll
exactly.
Just literally leave.
Exactly. That's why, to me, LeBron's no trade clause, like when the Lakers gave it to him, people were making a big deal out of it. I'm like, who cares? The Lakers would never sideswipe LeBron. And like one day he wakes up this morning, he finds out he's going to Charlotte. Like the Lakers would not do that. Like as an organization, they would not do that to someone of LeBron's stature. It goes against their entire ethos. Plus, trading LeBron, what team has $50 million worth of parts that are expendable enough that you would trade them for LeBron, but also leaves you enough that LeBron would want to play for that team and would make it worth it for the Lakers? Like, good luck finding that.
Until the very end.
I didn't tee this up properly. It's a Warriors trade or bust. Like, that's it, right? They've been linked before. You saw how happy LeBron was playing with Steph Curry in the Olympics. Like, that would be his, I can't say his, like, one last rodeo or whatever, because it would be this year and next year competing for a title with Steph, with Dre, with whatever, pieces are left after a trade like that. But the Warriors have enough young parts, have enough aggregatable salary, and have some future draft capital that they can throw in that it kind of allows you to jumpstart the beginning of the Luka era. You punt on this season, but it puts you up. It puts you in a position for better long-term success. And here's the big downside to the LeBron James situation. If next season is his final year, right, in the NBA, if that's going to be his farewell tour, how competitive are you really going to be in a farewell tour with LeBron James, where he wants all the glitz and glamour and focus on him during a goodbye tour for the entire 82-game season, right? He's not going to be focused and committed towards winning a title during his farewell tour. That's not.
You don't think LeBron would want his final season to be with a championship?
Could
like
be.
As far as the storybook endings go.
I'm just trying to be realistic about it. That's all.
But why wouldn't he want that? Like this isn't Kobe's farewell tour where Kobe was a shell of himself physically. Like LeBron may not be peak LeBron anymore, but he's still a pretty good player, and he's still playing where he's at a level that you could at the very least think about winning a championship with. Like, the idea that they are mutually exclusive doesn't make sense to me.
I don't watch them every night, but like the finals we just saw last year, if it's Boston again, him and Luka on the court together, like, is that really like a a rubric to beat the most
it's a
physical,
Swiss cheese defense is what it is.
swarming
I mean,
teams
it
in the NBA
depends.
anymore?
Like,
I can make those jokes now. Yeah.
Is Jackson Hayes my starting center, or is it somebody else? You know, like, again,
even if you're
Luka took Dwight Powell to the Western Conference Finals 3 years ago.
I'm familiar, Nick.
I'm really not trying to punt. I'm not trying to sidestep this. I mean, but really the answer is I don't know, because by all accounts, the Lakers are trying to do more. And if the roster is different in 72 hours, the answer may be different.
Yeah, for sure.
Coming up, Matt George has been biding his time, hanging out here, just chilling. They made a move. They sent De'Aaron Fox to the San Antonio Spurs. What do we think about that move in the Western Conference? How does it shape things? Talk about that and more coming up. Today's episode of Locked On NBA Squad Show West is brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel Sportsbook has all kinds of props and odds, things that you can use to get in on the action. I don't think that they had odds for a Luka Doncic trade, because I think they would laugh at you if that, just like Rob Pelinka laughed at Nico Harrison for that trade. But we do have the Western Conference odds right now. We've got the Thunder still plus 105 to come out of the West. We've got the Nuggets plus 600 to come out of the West. Lakers are now plus 850. Grizzlies plus 1,000, Clippers plus 1,600, Rockets plus 1,700, and the Mavericks plus 1,900. The Clippers over the Rockets in odds is interesting. All kinds of stuff you can check out at FanDuel. Right now, if you put down $5, you get $200 in bonus bets if that bet wins. So go check it out, FanDuel.com, official partner of Super Bowl 59. Thanks for hanging out with us on Locked On NBA Squad Show West. We've got your favorite hosts from the Locked On NBA teams all over the place. We've got a great show for all of them 5 days a week. And if you're a fan of the Dallas Mavericks, still multiple episodes a day for the next foreseeable future through the trade deadline. Matt George, the Kings traded De'Aaron Fox. It finally happened. You'd been sitting and waiting for it for a long time. What's the response from the Kings on trading De'Aaron Fox? And then we'll get into the Spurs part.
Well, if you're wondering about my physical and emotional state, I'm eating Valentine's Day chalk hearts. So that should tell you everything you need to know about the state of my health or how much I care about my body at the moment. The Sacramento Kings traded their franchise player. If you are familiar with the Sacramento Kings, it's not too often that they get a franchise player. In reality, is the trade horrible? No. A lot of people want to say the Sacramento Kings got fleeced. I think the San Antonio Spurs made out like freaking bandits in the deal, but the Kings still did manage to get Zach LaVine, who is definitely a downgrade, but offensively is more efficient of a scorer than De'Aaron Fox is. He's not even close to the defender that De'Aaron Fox is. But the reality, guys, is I've been trying to follow and chase down all of the rumors and all the speculation over the last week and some change. And there was a lot of it. This trade was close a couple of times, and then quieted down, and then was close, and then quieted down. It was because the Spurs were essentially playing hardball with what they were willing to offer. The Sacramento Kings were looking elsewhere to try and get some win now talent, because only the Kings can look to trade their franchise player and still try and win basketball games right away. And that's where Zach LaVine came into play. You're hearing rumors of Kevin Durant is suddenly available. I know the Sacramento Kings checked in on that. Not that there was any realistic possibility, but the Kings were trying to do their due diligence. The reality is the Kings still know this roster needs work, especially defensively. That hasn't changed at all. So I expect still more between now and February 6th trade deadline. But hey, we'll see. The Kings are known for dragging their feet on trades and being close, but no cigar. Here we are.
Brendan Clean, Locked On Suns. Any interest?
Any interest in who are we talking about?
Matt, you brought up the Suns.
No, it was the Kings were involving the Suns in conversations when talking about a De'Aaron Fox trade. Now that Fox is traded,
LaVine is gone. That was a potential Suns backup plan with Beal. De'Aaron Fox is clearly not on the market anymore. I was really liking the LeBron idea. That was nice. I was into that from a Suns standpoint until Andy said it had to be a package that the Lakers would like, which, that whole part of it. The other team having to say yes, I kind of forgot about. So Beal for LeBron, not quite going to happen. We're running out of options here in Phoenix unless Jimmy Butler gets his way.
Anybody feel like this is a good move for the Kings, or at least they did well enough in this move?
Yeah. Honestly, I thought they were fine. I think that if you know that it's going to fry up, if you know that things are going to spiral, then you might as well get some assets out of it right now before you have to pivot ultimately. Like, I think Zach LaVine's way underrated at this point in his career. Just everybody doesn't want to touch him with a 10-foot pole for some reason for the last couple seasons, but he has been a very great scorer for a long time, and the Kings are still going to score. Like that's definitely going to happen. The question is whether they can defend, and if they can't, then you've got opportunities to pivot at other times. But honestly, this feels to me like a move where the Kings then turn Zach LaVine into assets down the road when the contract is a little bit less onerous to another team that then decides, hey, we need a scorer now. So like it could be the start of asset accumulation mode and then building another guy around Domantas Sabonis and Keegan Murray.
I can think of approximately 40 million some odd reasons why people have been very Zach LaVine averse in recent years. Look, if only we knew what Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan looked like sharing a backcourt together. That's exciting. No, look, this is a very different version than like those Bulls teams that they were a part of together. I think it could work weirdly. Like, I think this is going to be like actually like maybe the best outcome for Sacramento, but if your goal was to stay like pseudo competitive in a Western Conference that's going to kind of be a bloodbath, well, now the focal point of your entire team, you know, your new franchise guy is Domantas Sabonis, right? Like all the spotlight is on him and how he can kind of elevate, you know, DeMar, Zach LaVine, and all the pieces around him, right? And I guess they just lean fully into that identity and see what happens.
I don't know if I would... well for the Kings to be trying to be pseudo competitive. That's always been great for them.
I don't know if I would go as far as to say, though, that the Kings view Domantas Sabonis as their franchise player. I think Domantas Sabonis is what he is, a really, 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 really good player. But everybody knows the limitations that you have with Domantas Sabonis, and especially if, like, and I'm the biggest Domantas Sabonis fan on the planet. He's extremely underrated, underappreciated by everybody in the league, and I'll continue to stand on that hill. But if Domantas Sabonis is your number one, you're probably struggling to ultimately accomplish the grand prize, which is winning an NBA championship. And if you're not going for that, what the hell are you going for? The reality is Malik Monk is going to be primarily under the spotlight now for the Sacramento Kings as their pretty much only facilitator, playmaker, and point guard at this point. Devin Carter's his backup, and we'll see. I mean, you say yikes, but Malik Monk has been extremely underrated as a playmaker and a ball handler. And every single time a team plays the Sacramento Kings, I get the same questions or same responses from people. Oh my God, I didn't know Malik Monk was this good of a good of a facilitator. Yeah, he is. And the two-man game with Domantas Sabonis is way better than it ever was with De'Aaron Fox. So Malik Monk is going to be given the keys in a lot of ways. He has LaVine, he has DeRozan to play off of, but the question is how much more our defense is going to hyper-focus in on Malik now that De'Aaron Fox is out of the picture.
So the Spurs are only a game and a half out of a one loss out of the 10 seed. Like they very well could just be there. I see two people, three maybe if we include Ryan, whose teams could play Wemby and the Spurs in the first round, and this new look team with Fox. I mean, Jackson, I feel like I'd be pretty scared. No? First run for the Rockets and they have to go up against that guy and now a veteran point guard star that you weren't expecting?
Yeah, is it weird that like the Rockets are in this really interesting spot where I feel like you're kind of like you walk away with whatever the outcome is in the postseason, it's going to be kind of a win because you wanted to get there and just get postseason experience. I think if they run into a veteran-laden team, like if you run into the Suns or this version of the Wolves, right, and you lose in the first round of them, like you don't necessarily feel bad about it. Like you're probably disappointed because you're like, okay, well this team, you know, was one of the best teams in the NBA for the regular season. Maybe they got some holes they need to fix for the postseason run. That would be maybe the one outcome where if you run into a San Antonio Spurs team that like won through the play-in bracket, they finish, you know, and you line up like 2-7 in the West or whatever, and then it's two teams with zero playoff experience or very little playoff experience between the two of them outside of like the couple veteran pieces here and there, and then you get like the Spurs get the better of you, that I think would be a really disappointing end to the Rockets season. It's one thing if you lose to a veteran team in the first round of the playoffs. It'd be a completely different thing if you lost to another young team on the upswing. That would suck.
How dare you disrespect Harrison Barnes that way?
Yeah, that's Harrison Barnes erasure right there.
I will say like one more thing to add in, and I've been kind of torn to shreds in Sacramento for this comment. I believe the San Antonio Spurs are a better team than the Sacramento Kings right now. And I believe it because they have the two biggest names. If you compare the two rosters, the two best players are in San Antonio. That two-man game, I think, is going to be electric because it's not the same kind of two-man game as you would have in Sacramento with Fox and Sabonis. The fact that Fox is a number two, I think, is perfect for him. It's fair to question whether he can be a number one. As a number two, it's perfection in
Which
San
may
Antonio.
Not be yet. Is Vic a number one in a playoff situation yet?
True. But also, like the San Antonio Spurs got this job done, guys, the best they gave up was like Zach Collins and City Sissoko. Like they got this trade done without giving away any of their core rotation. It was basically a free agency signing in that case. So they are plugging in De'Aaron Fox into their best talent that they did not have to adjust.
Speaking of which, I don't think it's a coincidence that the cowardly Matt Moore exited this show the minute I arrived, because some of you may recall last week, I said that we were not far off from San Antonio being a place that either free agents or star players,
as long as their wives live there,
try to get themselves to that team, because Wemby is so damn good and he's going to make your life so much easier. And Matt Moore shook his head. Oh, I've been hearing that since Tim Duncan, blah, blah, blah.
That is a good question.
Dude is
though,
not
right? Like,
showing
what
his
changed?
face.
Did they just draft so well with the Duncan era that they didn't even have to ever dip into that stuff, so it didn't matter? I mean, or is it just that
difference
there's so
never
much
made a trade.
disparity? The CBA
Well, just,
now makes players move in a way it didn't used to. I don't know.
Well, it's also, we live in an
Whoa,
era
the
of
Spurs landed LaMarcus Aldridge. How dare you? Come on.
I remember.
we
I
live in
remember
an era
Adam
of
Levine.
social media and, you know, player branding, and you don't need to be in LA or New York or Chicago or whatever to be seen. Like,
it
you
also
can be
helps if the place you're
seen.
leaving is Sacramento, unfortunately. You know.
Well, I mean, there are limits to my theory, but still.
That was just unnecessary. I mean, we didn't just kick them while it's down.
But I do think, though, that Fox going to San Antonio, beyond like what does this do for San Antonio as a team, I think it's notable in the sense that you may have seen a sea change in terms of, at minimum, San Antonio is that type of destination, but also you look at teams like OKC and some of these other small markets. If they've got the talent and they can make it worth your while, there may be stars who just say, look, I'm getting paid stupid money anyway. I have plenty of opportunities to brand as it is. I'm going to go where I can win.
Well, two things to that, Andy. Number one is the Spurs also don't have to be attractive to anybody necessarily, because they still have all of their great picks too. The Kings got all of the worst picks that the Spurs had in this deal, so they can just trade those picks and force somebody to come here in the short term. Number two is, I mean, to answer your question, I think Charles Barkley would choose to go to San Antonio at this point, and that's saying something if you follow Charles Barkley's comments on San Antonio and the ladies there in particular. I think San Antonio is 100% on the map after this move. Spurs are going to be really, really, really good for I think, very long time.
They are going to be good for a long time.
Than the Mavs, real quick.
The Spurs?
Yeah.
Oh, he's back.
Like Beetlejuice, Matt Moore returns to the fray. Andy, let him have it.
I thought it was a coincidence, Matt, that you ducked out the minute I showed up after last week mocking my idea that San Antonio could be a destination for star players because of Wembanyama. The skepticism that you threw out there, the shade, you treated me, frankly, Matt, like I was a simpleton. And look at where we are right now. Like a simpleton, like a dreamer. And now De'Aaron Fox is a Spur. By his own choice. His first choice.
I'm sorry. I'm confused. You said superstar. I don't. What? How does this have? How does this have anything to do with that?
Wow.
Damn.
I love De'Aaron. No, I love De'Aaron. He's awesome. I didn't mean to. Look, I thought that was a very reasonable trade, and I thought that if we were talking about that, I thought it was like a whole different thing. Right. I have a question for you though. Do you want to give Rob Pelinka credit? I'm genuinely asking.
You shouldn't.
Because, like, should he?
It's we were talking about this. I was sitting in on Travis and DeMarco on 710 ESPN, and like, to some degree, how good of a GM you think Rob Pelinka is determined more by what he does now that you have Luka than getting Luka, because like, it doesn't take a basketball genius to identify, hey, Luka Doncic is available. You might want to go get him. And this was even, by all accounts, initiated by Dallas. So it's not like Rob Pelinka planted a seed, like there was no inception involved to try to get Nico Harrison to do this. This was Nico's prompting. The one thing, though, that I will give credit to Rob Pelinka, because this is very consistent, he is known as a guy that keeps things super, super tight for better or for worse, depending on how you're looking at it, he is known as they keep their business really on the down low. And if you happen to be in a situation where the other GM is thinking about trading their transcendent superstar, not yet in his prime, but your main goal seems to be, even before what do you get in return, making it happen quickly and cleanly, that's a pretty good attribute. Like in terms of something Rob Pelinka had. I mean, this is something even Pelinka's detractors say about him. He is known for being able to keep a lid on things. And I do think that played a role in Rob's favor.
Nico Harrison is known for the exact same thing, and I kind of wish that he wasn't.
We're going to give you Luka. Don't tell anybody.
Yeah, don't tell anybody. He literally told nobody.
Matt George.
But he sat on this for like a month. Like that it's not always easy to do, especially if
it is if you're going to get a top 3 player in the NBA.
Look, I
can be quiet for a long time.
Sure. But I'm just saying that's something that I will give him credit, because that is his reputation. How good of a GM he is, again, ask me anywhere from 3 days from now to
you got to build a team around Luka now.
Yeah.
Matt George, I have a question. How do the Kings go from here to like contender? Like I'm serious, because like they have really good players, so it feels like maybe they could make steps up, right? I'm not being facetious here. I'm being genuine. Serious. Like, for you, what is the direction that the franchise should take here?
Well, step one, in my opinion, is, and this is legitimate, this is not just sour grapes the day after trading De'Aaron Fox, is fire your front office. I think this front office is bad. I think over the last 2 years, I did a whole podcast episode just laying out everything that they've done wrong over the last 2 years to get us to this point. So you need new leadership in this front office, number one. And start there. You got to find a star. Like, you have to find a star. You have to find a franchise guy. And the reality is the Sacramento Kings have the most names that they've had since the early 2000s, but none of them are guys that you feel great about carrying the mantle for you in a potential championship caliber window. It feels like the Kings have to kind of get lucky. I know they're trying to use these draft assets that they got in this Fox trade to try and go out and get another piece to add to this team right now to win right now. But I don't think anybody is looking at this iteration of the Sacramento Kings right now and thinking legitimate championship contender. You have to find a star and identify a star, and it starts there. And that's historically difficult to do in Sacramento. It might have to come in the draft, but guys, they still have their picks over the next 2 years as of right now tied up in their Kevin Huerter Atlanta Hawks trade, and Kevin Huerter is no longer on the team. So it's a mess. It's a mess. So we'll see what's next. But I think the Kings are going to be fun. I think they're going to be competitive. I think they might make the playoffs a time or two over the next 5 or 6 years, hopefully. But are they close to any legitimate contendership? No. And I don't see a path that leads there unless a complete curveball is thrown at them in terms of a name becoming available, or they hit the reset button.
Nico Harrison might be available soon.
That's it for us on the Locked On NBA Squad Show West. Jackson ended it. He just ended it just there. Guys, thanks for hanging out. Let's go check out your favorite Locked On NBA team. We've got a show for every single team 5 days a week or more. Guys, thanks for listening to Locked On NBA Squad Show West.